I guess we can start now. Okay, so the purpose of like this kind of presentation, or it's more like a sharing, is to just give like a brief overview of the A level geography syllabus. So I'll be speaking quite a lot more like on like H2 geography rather than H1 because I didn't personally like take H1, so I don't have that much to say about it, but like I'll still try my best to give as much details as possible. Yeah, so this will be just be like a brief overview of what like the syllabus is about and what to expect, so it can help y'all have a better understanding, and then it can help y'all make like better decisions on whether you want to take it as an actual subject yeah, when you go to A levels because I'm assuming most people here would be O level students who are debating like what subjects to take. Yeah, okay, so I just thought, oh wait, doesn't move. Okay, yes. So I just thought I should give a bit of like self intro. Yeah, so that it's not like an anonymous person talking to y'all. And y'all know like who this person in the black box is. Yeah, okay. So I was like an O level student from MG, then I went to HCI. Yeah, so some relevant experiences could be that I was from the JOG TDP and the JOG team for Singapore, as well as the international job B participant. Yeah, but there's also like non-job related activities which you can ask me about, but like because this is a job introduction, right? So these are like less important. Yeah, but you can still ask me about that lah. I will stay back to like answer whatever questions that you might have. Yeah, so I've kind of listed them here. You can ask me like about like my experiences, or if you're considering like any of these, or like yeah, just like maybe like the technical aspects of it, or like whether I enjoyed these experiences. And yeah, okay, so currently yeah, I'm in NUS doing environmental studies. Yes, okay, so I thought that first, like before I delve into what A level geography is about, I should kind of clarify like what it's not about first. Okay, so the first, I have like two main points about the misconceptions about A-level geography. So this is the first point, but the first point is not as prevalent as the second one. Okay, so but I'll still like touch on the first point, which is that it seems like a lot of people kind of think that A-level geog is like studying like exclusively like the climate and the earth and like sustainable development and all the greenwashing and then TNCs and that sort of thing, which I guess there's some truth in it, but then that's not like the only thing. Like it's like that does form quite a big bulk of the H2 syllabus and the H1 syllabus also lah. Yeah, but it's like quite a lot deeper than that. So I feel like sometimes it's quite superficial, like the exposure that we have, let's say in like O level like English, or maybe like A level like general paper, when they people like try to cram content for environmental issues. Yeah, so like that's like maybe like a very like short intro, like 10% of what it actually is about. Yeah, but like in reality there's quite a bit more depth that is explored, yeah, for A level geography. Yes, okay, so I think this misconception might be more common than the previous one. So this second one, right, is that a lot of people think that you must like cram a lot, then like one day before the exam, then you stay up very late and then you cram all that sort of thing, or your memory needs to be super good. Yeah, but then like I feel like that's quite a misconception, because like I personally felt like I didn't really memorize that much. It's more of like understanding rather than memory work. So even though the content for H2 like geography might be theoretically might be more than like, let's say like H2 biology, like the amount of content that you need to know, it's a lot easier to memorize because you don't have to memorize word for word. You just need to get the concept. Then after the rest of it, it will just like flow. Yeah. And then a lot of it is also about like analytical capabilities and writing skills rather than actual memorization. This is very different from O level geography. So from my personal experience, right, like because I was like an O level student, yeah, O level geography, I felt like there is like quite a lot of memorization. You can actually get away with it. So like you can just like memorize like your whole textbook like super well, and yeah, just like know it like extremely well, and then you can get like a A1. But like for A level job, there's a you it's good if you can memorize a lot, but that's not really the most important thing, I feel. Yeah. It might just get you like a B, or if you're unlucky it will just give you like a C. Yeah, that sort of thing. So like basically the emphasis is that like it's really not as important anymore. Not to say that you should completely scrap it, but like I feel like the emphasis is more on how well you can argue for your point, that sort of thing lah. Yeah. Okay. So I think for me I memorize only like 1/3 of my whole syllabus, like 1/3 of the actual content, because the rest of them is not really memorization. It's more of like you just know it. Sometimes it's common sense also. Yeah. And okay, so then after that, like given that I've kind of briefly explored, right, like what A level geog is not about, so I thought like it would be good to give like maybe like a taster course sort of thing, like just a very short one on what A level geog like is about, so that you can have a better understanding of what it would be like to study it like when you are actually in the classroom, that sort of thing. So this is gonna try to simulate albeit on like a very brief level on like what you can expect in the classroom and in JC when you actually take it. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just briefly cover like the fact that there are 4 teams in H2 geography, though most people don't really count GI as a team. GI is geographical investigation, is team 4. That's why like I italicized it. Yeah, but most people only count team 1, 2, 3 as actual like legit teams, because GI is like that one can smoke one. Yeah, so like team 1, 2, 3, right? It's basically like for H2. So like I've highlighted like team 2 in yellow because that is only for H2. But for H1 is you only have team 1 and team 3. Yeah. So H1 basically the content is about 2/3 of like the H2 syllabus. Yeah, so for team 1 it's tropical environments under physical geog. Then team 2 and 3 is both human geog already. So as you can tell, human geog makes up quite a big part of like your syllabus, and it's actually more important than physical geog. That's not to say that physical geog like is unimportant. It's just um not as like the emphasis is not really there as compared to like human geog. Yeah, but then honestly, even though the content for human geog is more, the memory work for physical geog is like a lot more. So like you don't really have to memorize the human geog stuff, even though it's 2/3, but you kind of generally do need to memorize like at least the keywords or the key processes for physical geog, even though it's only 1/3. Yeah, so you can kind of see like the dynamics, right? Like the balance, like physical geog is not so much of the content itself is lesser, but you have to get the details and you have to get the exact processes right, whereas human geog theoretically has more content, but it's a lot of like so-called like smoking or like common sense of thing, like you don't actually need to memorize that much. Yeah. Okay, so then I will give like an intro to team 1 and team 3, because I'm gonna skip team 2 because like team 2 is not in like the H1 syllabus and it's only for H2. So for some of y'all who might be considering just taking like H1 job, yeah, might not be very relevant. So that's kind of why I chose to focus like on one particular topic in team 1 and one particular topic in team 3. Okay, yeah. So this is like an introduction to what y'all might be exposed to like when you are having lessons itself. Yeah, so okay, so for this right, I've put like a diagram of yeah, the trade winds and the tricellular model. Yeah, so I mean it's called tricellular model because there's like the Hadley. Okay, wait, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but there's the Hadley cell, mid-latitude cell, and polar cell. So for H2 jog, we only do the Hadley cell and we don't need to care about the rest. Why is this so? Okay, the reason is because like we are in Singapore, which is very close to like the equator. Rather it's like yeah, almost at the equator. So the syllabus is based on the region that we are at. Yeah, so that's why we only study the tropics. So we don't study like the temperate regions, or we don't study like the polar regions. Yeah, so it's exclusively on the tropics. Okay, so a essay question that, okay, it's not really an essay question, like a question that might be asked, or like you must have a understanding of, is how the Hadley cell forms. So the explanation of it. So the Hadley cell is this thing which I boxed up. Like, again, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but you can see like a green box which says like Hadley cell, right? Yeah, so the way that we will be asked to explain is, so first we have to explain like why the temperature at the equatorial regions would be higher than the temperate region. So I mean, to a lot of us, this is like common sense. Obviously, it's hotter, right? But then we have to have the actual reasoning for it. You have to like know why quite well lah. Yeah, so you have to explain why. So we will be asked to write like temperature is higher due to lower angle of incidence, which reduces beam spreading. This probably would be covered in pure geography if you took like, yeah, O level pure geog, if I recall correctly. Yeah, but then we just in A level we go deeper. So therefore we have to explain like the intense solar insolation, which basically is another word for radiation, like causes like the air parcels to heat up intensely and expand in volume, and therefore become less dense than the surrounding air. So this is like physics, like it makes sense, right? Yeah, then therefore they rise upwards, which creates a zone of low pressure, which constitutes the rising arm of the Hadley cell, and this zone of low pressure is called the ITCZ. So it sounds a bit confusing, but okay, wait, I'm going to skip the next slide and show you. Yeah, this is basically might give you a better understanding of it. So this zone of low pressure is this thing. Like this thing is the Hadley cell, like the thing that goes round and round. That is the cell itself, but it's just a different perspective. Like just now, like yeah, you saw this one. The perspective is like this, right? um yeah, if you can see my mouse, this one the perspective is is like a cross section of the earth rather than like the earth itself. Yeah, so I hope that is understandable. Don't worry if it's a bit confusing, because I'm like rushing through like the whole process right now, so you will have more time to absorb it when you actually are in the classroom itself. Yeah, so anyways, back to the point about rising upwards to create a zone of low pressure, which is called the ITCZ. So I pointed here like the ITCZ. Here it's the green arrow is basically like talking about ITCZ. So this whole green portion where I highlighted in green is the ITCZ explanation, and then after that, the yellow portion will be the STHPB. So STHPB stands for the subtropical high pressure belt. Yeah, so and the STHPB, like, because like after the um the rising arm expands upwards, like it will subside the air, or rather the parcel of air will subside, condense and warm. So therefore like this forms like the STHPB. Yeah, this is like the exact same thing over here lah. So again, like this is the rising arm, like the arrows pointing up, then after that the arrows like pointing down, like here is one and then here's like another one. Yeah, it's the STHPB. So it's basically like pushing down. That's why it's a high pressure belt, because the air is mechanically forced downwards, right? So that's where like the high pressure comes from. Whereas this one is low pressure because the air is rising, and then like we know like rising because of the buoyancy. So I mean, the pressure will logically decrease. Yeah, so that's like the rough explanation for the global climatic circulation, or rather for how the Hadley cell is formed. Yeah, so then after that, now we explain how the rising arm is formed and how like the falling or the descending arm is formed, which forms the ITCZ and STHPB respectively. Yeah, so then now we'll be like, okay, so there's one region with high pressure and one region with like low pressure. So I put like an arrow here, like a greenish arrow here, to show that winds will be blown, or the trade winds will rush from the STHBB to the ITCZ, from high pressure to low pressure. Yeah, they converge towards it, and then after that they continue to rise again, because the rising arm and after that the falling arm. So it's this circular loop, like it just keeps continuing like on and on. Yeah, because of the temperature difference as well as the pressure difference. So the way to explain it, to recap, right, is to first talk about the temperature difference because of the angle of incidence of the midday sun and the beam spreading, which is covered in O-level geography, I think. Yeah, then after that, because of the temperature difference, there is a pressure difference because of the rising and falling arms. And then because of the pressure difference, the trade winds move from high pressure to low pressure. Yeah, and therefore it just closes the loop and continually circulates to form this like Hadley cell circulation. Yeah, so that's like the explanation of like the global climatic circulation. Yeah, okay. So therefore the next one, this one is I feel like it's quite like easy, I guess. Not so much like sciencey. It's more of like just content knowledge sort of thing. So this is team 3 because remember just now like I covered team 1, right? So this one is team 3. Yeah, this one is sustainable development and scientific evidence for climate change. So then a lot of us like might kind of think climate change, like everybody talk about it, isn't it so obvious? Like why must we even like prove that climate change is happening? Yeah, but then I guess like in geography we kind of learn like what is the exact scientific reasons for it rather than simply saying like, oh, because the scientists say so, that's why. But we like in this case we are kind of like somewhat um like the scientists in that we have to know like why exactly. We don't have to go into the super in-depth like scientific explanations and that sort of thing, but we need to know the general process, like just get the rough idea of it. Yeah, so most of this don't need to be memorized word for word. It's more of like understanding. Yeah, yeah, okay. So evidence of past climate, right? So that's one of the syllabus outcomes that we have to cover in both H1 and H2 geography. Yeah, so there's like 3 proxy data that I will kind of cover. So this is the first proxy data, which is ice cores. Basically, ice cores found in ice sheets, like in like permafrost, right? They trap like gas bubbles, and then these gas bubbles you can kind of evaluate the type of the chemical composition that is found within them. Yeah, so basically from these different concentrations of like atoms and gases, like let's say like the different isotopes of oxygen like O16 and O18, yeah, it will change based on the time period and based on the chemical composition of the air. So it sounds a bit confusing now, but like we don't really need to go into the details of it. We just kind of like know that is like it works like that. Yeah, and that's one of them. So I mean this one's quite obvious that a lot of people would know about, right? Like the gas bubbles inside would contain different like gaseous concentrations lah, based on the gas composition at that point in time of like at that point in geologic time. Yeah, and then secondly is also like the different layers of new winter snow as well as the old summer snow, which can indicate changes in the wind direction or the precipitation direction. So let's say if you have like several layers of new winters of old summer snow, and then suddenly like there's a change in the wind direction, right? Then you have a new type of snow. So it's like this like layering of the snow on top of each other that you can tell like, oh, okay, there's a change in wind direction, and this change in wind direction will affect the global like climatic circulation. Yeah, and as well as the fact that like you can analyze like what exactly or the composition of the snow like itself. Yeah, which is going to be affected lah by the type of the temperature of the climate at that point in time. Yeah, so these are all just like individual data points. Of course you need to like combine all these data points lah to get like a better idea of the large picture. Yeah, but like these are like helpful in understanding what exactly like the climate was like at that point in time. And lastly, right, so the third point I put is the layers of dust which reveal like volcanic activity. Yeah, so I think in the pure geog textbook, if I still remember correctly, and if y'all haven't changed textbook, there was this volcano that was mentioned under plate tectonics in one of the chapters, which talked about how the eruption of I think it was Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, of like many million or something tons of SO2 caused the global atmospheric temperature to be lowered by about 2 degrees. Yeah, so it's because of this volcanic ash which can cause lower atmospheric temperatures. So in the same way, where you find like there is volcanic dust inside the ice cores, right, then you know that okay, there's been a volcanic eruption. And what does this volcanic eruption do? Most of the time, for at least for the first few years, it can actually lower the global atmospheric temperature, and this helps you understand the type of climate that was happening at that point in time, or the type of climate that was present at a particular point in time. Yeah, then it's important to understand the climate at that point in time, because then you have like baseline data for what the climate was versus what it is now. So it allows you to plot these data points for better comparison. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first one. And then after the second one is like pollen. So this one's a bit scientific-ish, I guess, but like I didn't really include much scientific information here lah. So basically, the walls of pollen, right, they're coated in like sporopollenin. Yeah, and after that, it allows them to be preserved in the sediment layers, or the sedimentary rocks. Yeah, so because like different types of plants will have different types of pollen. So by extrapolation, if you see certain types of pollen in a particular region, you know that certain types of plants grew there. And then you also know that certain types of plants can only grow under particular climate conditions. Yeah, so then by inference, or like by extrapolation, you can infer what the climatic conditions were at that point in time. Yes. Yeah, and then I guess like this one's like quite straightforward in terms of understanding, but it's not exactly that straightforward in terms of like making the inference. But that one we don't really need to do it. We just need to know that that's how scientists do it. Yeah. Okay, so then the third one, it's corals, which are quite similar actually to tree rings. Like they produce like basically they produce like growth rings, which has very very similar to the tree rings lah. Yeah, but they can produce it over a long period of time, like as fossils that kind of like can be preserved over long periods of time, unlike like the trees which might die within like, let's say like hundreds of years, or within like hundreds of years. Yeah, so and then because of that, yeah, these growth bands, they are of different densities during the summer and during the winter. So like if you use an x-ray, you can tell how the summers were like and how the winters were like let's say like it has a lot of groove bands in indicating like very long winters, then you know that okay, in the past the climate used to be colder. Yeah, and secondly, there's another way that it can be used. So the expulsion, right, of the symbiotic like zooxanthellae, which is basically the algae, it kind of indicates that the corals were undergoing a period of ecological stress. Yeah, then this can be extrapolated to more extreme climatic conditions. Yeah, so again, I know it's like a lot of like extrapolation, that sort of thing, and I don't really know how they do it, but we don't need to know how they do it. We just need to know like the general idea of like why it works, or what is the reasoning behind them using all these proxy data. Yeah, so this is not really an evaluation question. If they ask this, it will be like just a description question. So like they'll kind of ask you to describe like the proxy data used for like the evidence of climate change in the past, that sort of thing, or to study the climatic conditions in the past. Yeah, so that one is it's not really that hard. It's kind of a bit of like memory work coupled with understanding. You don't actually need to evaluate that much compared to some other questions. Yeah, but that's kind of why I chose to explore this topic a bit, because it's quite easy to understand. Yeah. Okay, then okay, actually this one is also about sustainable development. Yeah, so this is still on theme 3. Yeah, this one I'll just like briefly run through, since yeah, I'm kind of like at the 30-minute mark, I guess, and I wanted to leave a bit of time for Q&A. Yeah, so I guess like for this is one of the topics, or one of the syllabus like learning outcomes that H1 and H2 geography will cover. So that's why I chose to touch a bit on this. Yeah, so they will ask like the impacts of climate change on sustainable development. So it's not even like impacts of climate change in general, but on sustainable development. So we kind of need to know the tenets of sustainable development. Then after that, we link it to how climate change has impacted that. But in this case, like I've only talked about the impacts, and I can't really link it that much to sustainable development because sustainable development itself is a very big topic which I will not have time to cover. Yeah, so this one is just a very brief like intro to it. Okay, so actually climate change, like there's a lot of like how to say, like the media always like kind of paints it in a very bad light, which is true, I guess. Like it definitely like is like a negative thing, but like there's also positive impacts of climate change. Yeah, so I mean these these are probably like, you know, like in terms of negative versus positive, negatives probably outweigh the positive by a lot. Yeah, but there are still like some positive impacts, so it's not like completely like, oh, everything is like gonna die and like everything is like doom and gloom, that sort of thing lah. There's definitely some benefits that can be obtained from climate change itself. So one of them is increased crop yield for higher latitudes. Yeah, so I gave some examples here like Australia and Argentina. And secondly, there's opening of new sea transport routes and livable land that in the past used to be permafrost and ice sheets, so they were unlivable and inhabitable. Yeah, but then now because of climate change, they are more livable, or yeah, they can be used lah. But then I mean, this is only for a short time period, time scale. So they might be livable for now, but as climate change like continues, they will also become unlivable. Yeah, so it's depends on how you wanna approach it. Right? You wanna look at like the short term as in like maybe the next 10 years versus the next 100 years, like that sort of thing. Yeah, and then lastly, there will be new oil and gas reserves, especially in the Arctic, that can be accessed now. So there's more energy reserves. There's actually a lot of oil like in the Arctic. The only reason why we're not tapping on it now is because it's very logistically challenging and like uneconomical because there's so much ice. So you need to have all these like icebreakers. Yeah, but then once the Arctic like melts, it will be easier to access them. Yeah, but again, like we have to look at the perspective of who it's beneficial from. So it might be beneficial for some countries, like for example Russia. Yeah, but it might not be beneficial for other countries that would be negatively impacted by climate change, which I will go on to here. Yeah, so yeah, there's I'll touch on like the negative impacts of climate change now, because I mean obviously there are a lot, and I think we probably know like a lot of them. So I'll just like very briefly go into them. So there is probably likely going to be like altitudinal and latitudinal migration of the tree line. So like what does this mean? Yeah, the altitude is basically how high, and the latitude is basically like, you know, the equator is 0 degrees latitude, right? Then after as you go higher, the latitude increases. Yeah, so as temperatures rise, like it makes sense that the trees are migrating to colder regions, because higher altitude colder, higher latitude also colder. Yeah, so it reduces the crop yield for lower latitudes. Yeah, and then secondly is that higher temperatures provide greater energy for extreme weather phenomena. So for example, tropical cyclones that y'all probably will have studied in pure geography, if I remember correctly. Yeah, tropical cyclones need like a particular temperature, right? And then they also like particular sea surface temperature. So the higher the temperature, at some points, like where there are other factors involved, of course, like, you know, Coriolis effect and all those, for the pure geog people who probably would have remembered this. Yeah, it provides like greater energy for these extreme weather events. Yeah, and then there's also increased like pest activity, which will affect like food security. And then this one's very obvious. Okay, so sea level rise, like everyone's like, they all know about it because there's a lot of like panic, I guess, or like publicity about it in the media. Yeah, so this is actually due to two main factors. So first is thermal expansion of seawater, and secondly it's the additional volume of input from the melting ice sheets. Yeah, so right, a lot of people, right, they kind of have the impression that the sea level rise is from the melting ice sheets. Like they always show like the polar bear, then the polar bear like got no more ice sheets, that sort of thing. And after they always show like the melting ice sheets causing the sea level to rise. But actually, generally, the consensus is more of that the seawater expands with higher temperature rather than the sea level rise is caused by melting ice sheets. It's definitely a combination of both, but like there's a bit of an overemphasis on one, yeah, and not enough emphasis on another. Yeah, actually. So this is something that most people or not many people would know about. Yeah. Okay. And then secondly, ocean acidification. So okay, fun fact number 2. Ocean acidification does not actually mean that the ocean turns more acidic. It's just a relative thing. Yeah. So its original pH was actually like 8 point like 1 wait 8.2 I think. Yeah, 8.2. Whereas like currently the pH is at 8.1. Yeah. So it's like it's still alkali, you know, because it's greater than 7, but like relative to its original healthy amount, like it's like lowered lah. Yeah. Okay, so I kind of wrote like a doc for the more detailed introduction and subject analysis, which you, if you are interested, you can always look at like the document. Yeah. um it kind of covers a little bit more about like how to study, so that is more for the people who have already chosen to take it and have already chosen to take like H2 geography or even H1 geog. Yeah. And it's covers like the common mistakes and how to analyze questions that the examiners may throw at you. So like what are the different types of questions that might be asked and how to like you know go about answering them. And I also wrote a little bit about how to study for like geography, or at least how I studied for geography. That has helped me quite a lot. Yeah. So it gives like the step by step like breakdown on how I first like would read through like the lecture notes, then go for the lecture, then second time read through the lecture notes to analyze it, then after that make notes, then after that make the essay outlines. Yeah, so this is like my 5-step process. But again, everyone has a different way of studying for it lah. It's just that I found this way the most helpful, and you can try to explore it if you are also interested in it. Yeah, I hope the QR code like is working. Yeah, but if not, at the end you can also ask me about like this, and I would yeah be happy to help and to reply whatever questions that you might have. Yes. Okay. So I thought that it would be a good idea for me to kind of compare like the A-level geog syllabus between like you know H1 and H2, because a lot of students, right, they might be wondering, should I take H1 geog or should I take like H2 geog, especially if you are like a science student taking like BCM something. So like your H1 would be, most people would take econs, but like some people might want to take geog or like any other humanity subject lah. Yeah. Oh yeah, for me like I took like BCMG, so I mean I took H2 geog. Yeah, but I know a little bit about H1, or and I can kind of talk a bit about that. Yeah, so the difference that I feel is not really in terms of the skills, it's mainly like the content itself. Like that's the general difference. Okay, so the more specific difference is like in terms of like the format. So for H1 job, there's only one paper and it's 3 hours, and it's like your all your 2 years of hard work is like banked on that 3 hour paper. Yeah, so it's a bit scary, but like I guess it sometimes it do be like that sometimes. Yeah. So for H1 job, there's like section A, B, C. So section A will be GI, which is 25 marks, and section B is DRQ. Oh yeah, GI stands for geographical investigation, like by the way. Yeah. So geographical investigation, remember at the start like of the presentation I said it was like team 4, right? But honestly, most people don't even count it as an actual team. It's just like GI is kind of like a lot of common sense, and you don't really need to study for it that much as compared to your teams 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And yeah, that one a lot of people can score like close to full marks, that sort of thing lah for GI. So it's kind of like a thing to pull you up. Yeah. And then section B is DRQs. DRQ stands for like the direct like response question, or like the ones where they give you like the sources, then after that you have to like analyze the graph, that sort of thing. Yeah, so they have like part A, B, C, D, E, that. And yeah, it's generally not that difficult. The section C is probably the more challenging one, which is the essay paper. Yeah, so you have 2 questions of physical geog, in which you choose one, and then 2 questions of human geog, in which you choose one. So each of them are worth 25 marks. So that's how you get the 50 marks, like in total. Yeah, so the mark distribution, right, is part A is 9 marks and part B is 16 marks. Yeah, so that's how like you add up lah to 25 marks. Okay, so that is for H1 geog. So now I'll move on to H2 geog. Okay, so H2 geog, you have 2 papers. Each of them is 3 hours and each of them is 50% of your grade. Yeah, so each paper is worth, okay, the paper 2 is worth 100 marks, which makes sense. Like, it's a nice number. I don't know why paper 1 they put it like upon 96 marks, even though it's 50% of the grade. Like, I don't know why like they have like this like 4 mark deficit when they can just easily make it like 100%. But okay, yeah. So for paper 1, which I will delve into now, is the essay paper. Yeah, so it's basically like the 3 content themes which I talked about just now, right? So each of the content themes will have 2 questions, then you choose one of them from. So that's how you end up doing 3 questions in total, and each of these questions is worth 32 marks. So the breakdown is part A is 12 marks and part B is 20 marks. Yeah, but it's a bit, I mean, this is quite detailed already, so you don't have to memorize like, what's the breakdown or anything. It's just for you to have a better idea. So you just need to remember like each question is 32 marks and you have 3 questions that you do, so you have 96 marks in total. Yeah, and then after that, paper 2 is 3 hours and it's also worth 50% of your grade. So it's a GI/DRQ paper. It's basically like H1 geog section A and B, but then like you times 2. Yeah, it's about 100 marks instead of like 25 marks or 50 marks in total lah. Yeah, so each team will have 1 question. So you do 4 questions in total, because remember like team 1, 2, 3, right? And then you have GI, so team 1, 2, 3 plus GI will be 4, and each of them is worth like 25 marks. Yeah, so as you can tell from the math, I guess, paper 1 each mark is worth more than in paper 2, but only a bit lah. I mean, like 96 and 100 quite close, so it's not very significant. Yeah, but your marks will end up with a lot of decimal places, because I'm not sure why they decided to have 96 instead of 100. Yeah. Okay, so I guess this is like a brief comparison between like O level and A level geography. Yeah, so for O level geography, like you only have like one real essay question, right? Which is the 8 mark like final part question. Like you have like part A, B, C, D, E. Then usually is part E where you have to write this. My school called it like LOU, but I don't think other schools call it that. It's basically like levels mark. Yeah, and then after that, like you have like level 1, level 2, level 3. Then your maximum is 8 marks. Yeah, but then in A level geography is like most or half of your um paper is essay writing. Yeah, so it's not like the essay where you regurgitate, it's the essay where you have to analyze and take like a stand. So there's like an argument involved rather than like them simply asking, oh, you describe this, or what are the effects of like climate change, like that sort of thing. That one is like very like basic level. For this one, they will kind of ask you like to what extent is climate change in like small island developing states, or like lower lying states, or maybe like less developed countries impacted by like the TNCs or something like that. Like it's a bit more like complicated. It's not so like, yeah, base level, that sort of thing lah. Yeah, and secondly, the second point I wrote is that like you have to come up with your own analysis and arguments on the spot, so you can't really like memorize and like copy paste from notes anymore. Yeah, this is what I did a lot in O levels. Like you just memorize the whole textbook, then you can score very well already. But then like A levels is not really like that, so you have to come up with like your own analysis and arguments. Yeah, and a lot of people make the mistake of they memorize a lot, then they feel like they need to use what they memorize, then after that they go off point, like they don't answer the question. Yeah, then after that like a lot of people fail because of that, so that's like a very common mistake. Yeah, that like I hope like we will all not make. Yeah, okay, so then lastly is that content will be taught at a much greater depth and breadth. Yeah, so in secondary school we had like 6 chapters, right? Like for pure geog, and 4 chapters for elective geog, if they haven't changed the textbook, but that's what I remember. Yeah, so in H2 Geog you have around 50 chapters, so it's a lot more than your secondary school chapters lah. But then again, even though it's like very like the content is really a lot, I feel like you don't really need to be intimidated, because like you can use your understanding and analytical or essay writing skills to like help you get through, rather than simply just memorizing, which might take up a lot of energy. Yeah, this one is you understand rather than memorize. Yeah. Okay, then after that, yeah, I guess like comparing um like A-level geog. Wait, no, oh yeah, for A-level geog, like I wrote there's some things that I most enjoyed, so I will be kind of touching on like what I most enjoyed and then what I like least enjoyed. Yeah, so this is the first part, which is what I most enjoyed, so maybe it can help you have a better idea of whether you want to take the subject like in JC. Yeah, so I think like one of the more most important points was that the fact that like I was thinking a very niche combination. So like the class that I was in was very enthusiastic and quite wholesome. But then again, I understand that it's not like a guarantee that you take like a niche combination then you get a good class. It just happened that I did. Yeah, so this is like what I most enjoy. It's not like what you will probably most enjoy, like that sort of thing. So it's like a personal experience, personal recount, that sort of thing. Yeah. And secondly, like the subject itself, like I like the subject lah, I guess. I think it's just like something that I've been interested in since secondary school. Yeah, and I found it very relevant to other subjects also, like for example GP, so it can help you with your GP examples. Yeah, so it's like the subjects interact with one another so that they don't exist like in silos, or they're not like compartmentalized, and you study one subject and then you study another subject and then there's no interaction between them. But for geog, there's interaction with geog and a lot of subjects because it's very broad. The physical geog part covers a lot of science, like let's say like biodiversity and physics, like a bit of it, or like chemistry, again a bit of it. Then after that, the human geog part, there's a lot of like GP and some history involved. Yeah, so I know it's like on a very cursory level, but at the same time I feel like there's quite a lot of interaction, yeah, which you won't find in other subjects. At least that's kind of what I feel lah. Yeah, so thirdly, I wrote that yeah, the experiences were very fun, but again I have to acknowledge that this is probably just the fact that my class was good rather than because of the subject itself. Yeah, so um I wrote like this like kind of like a meme thingy that a lot of like it was like a batch inside joke that like some of my batchmates were like licking the rocks. Yeah, so like not that I encourage it, but like it's an actual thing. Yeah, so you can tell the rocks apart by the taste. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I wrote like what I least enjoy here. The okay, like the first point is that the subject requirements or the syllabus requirements are quite hazy. Like they're set by Cambridge, but even like the geog teachers in my school, and honestly in quite a lot of schools, they're not very sure what Cambridge actually wants. So like this is like the only subject that I have taken that the teachers don't even know like what Cambridge wants. Yeah, so usually for the other subjects, they'll be quite clear. They'll be like, okay, Cambridge like wants this, or like Cambridge specify specifically. But for geography, it's like a guessing game sometimes. So sometimes it's really like based on luck, I guess. Yeah, like like the syllabus requirement is confusing when even the teachers don't really know what they what they're requiring of us lah, which is quite funny. Yes, but anyway, yeah, I guess that's like one of the major concerns that some people might have. So if you are like looking for a subject where you can like be very clear about and you don't want any ambiguity, yeah, this might be a disadvantage for like A-level geography. Yeah. um but then again, if you enjoy like the subject itself, like I would say like still go for it. Yeah, because I feel like it's very fun. Yeah. Okay, then secondly is that I guess the content coverage can be a bit idealistic or like simplistic. Yeah, but then I have to acknowledge that because we only have 2 years, so we can't go into very deep like analysis of what the issues are about lah. Yeah, so I mean this is not really a problem with the subject itself, it's more of the environment that we are in. Like A levels is only 2 years, so it doesn't make practical sense to go very in depth. Yeah, but I mean I guess I did wish that there could be less simplistic understanding of certain like issues, I guess. Yes. And then okay, lastly is I think it's quite common for a lot of humans, or okay, not really a lot, but some humans, the school notes quality is like quite bad. And then specifically for geography, I'm not very sure why, but a lot of people complain that their school notes are quite trash. Yeah, I guess like is there's some truth in it. Honestly, it's not really the teacher's fault because they don't even know what Cambridge wants. Yeah, but like most people will have to end up making their notes like from scratch. It's probably already done for most subjects. It's just that for some subjects like you can, or you if you don't want to, you don't have to make it from scratch. But for geography it's like you must, like you don't even have a choice sort of thing lah. Yeah, I mean there's like some pre-made notes like here, if you want. So but I mean these are just like my own notes that I put. So yeah, I'm not sure if they might be helpful, but this is for people who like to study with the notes from seniors already lah. Yeah. Okay, so then I wrote like a question, right? So if I could go back in time, would I still choose to take H2 geography? Yes. Yeah, yeah, I mean it was one of my favorite subjects. Actually, I think it was my favorite subject. Yeah, it was um probably because of all the reasons that I have elaborated on previously. Yeah. So I mean I would encourage like anyone who is interested in the subject to not let like the content heaviness, or like the horror stories that people tell you to just to like push you away from it, because I feel like it's very fulfilling. Yeah.
Hi, so I have a question.
Okay, sure.
I just want to know like what are the pros and cons of taking H1 instead of H2? Like, is it that I'll have lesser options for courses in uni or something like that?
So your question was pros and cons of taking H1 or versus H2, is it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I guess like okay, actually this one is basically is your question about whether like what is the pros and cons of taking H1 subject versus a H2 subject,
yeah,
or is
like
it specific
specific,
to geography?
yeah, specific to geography. Because for maths, I heard that got lesser science
Mm,
options like for career.
mm.
So what does it mean if I take H1 job instead of H2?
Okay. Yeah, I mean like yeah, that's a good question. Okay, actually right, for math and honestly for the sciences, there's like quite a lot of like it closes a number of doors if you don't take the H2, but for geography like no, not really. There's no significant difference. Like I actually in terms of like the admission requirements for NUS, maybe if you go overseas there might be a difference, but NUS and NTU and the local unis, like you can take H1, you can take H2, or you don't even need to take geography. Like geography is not even a prerequisite for like almost all the courses. Yeah, so it's more of like you are taking it out of like interest, or like interest for the subject, rather than for like the uni requirements, which that one is more for the science subjects, like especially like math and chemistry. Yeah, and then that one you have to take like H2 math or H2 chemistry, that sort of thing. Whereas for most of the humanities subjects, like you don't really need to take the H2. You don't even need to take the humanities subject. You can just take econs if you feel like, I mean, like the humanities subject is not your cup of tea, that sort of thing lah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
how
we can
did
hear.
you study for geog and how much time you took to study for it on like a weekly basis?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess like the way I studied for it, okay, so I had like I mentioned a little bit about like my so-called like five-step approach. So the way I did it, like I mean it worked for me, like it might not work for other people, but like I first like read the lecture notes, or like the school's notes like briefly. Then after that I go for the lecture, then after that I go for like the tutorial because the tutorial is after the lecture, and then after the tutorial is where I read the lecture notes again but in like great detail. So instead of like general just like reading through briefly and getting the general idea, I will like highlight the important points, and then like I will type like in my online notes all these important points. Yeah, so following which like using the tutorial I will use the opportunity to kind of formulate essay questions. So with these essay questions, right, then I'll write essay outlines for it. Yeah, so this is like okay, this is very specific to paper one because I mean paper two don't have essay, but paper one has essay. But yeah, I guess that's the way I did it. I didn't really so called study for paper two because when you study for paper one, you're also studying for paper two. Yeah, so like it's quite like most people will exclusively focus on studying for paper one, then paper two kind of comes like quite naturally because you already have all the content that you need lah. It's just the DRQ skills which can be quite easily acquired. Yeah, so that's why like the main emphasis usually that teachers focus on, at least in my school, was like exclusively paper one and maybe a bit of paper two. Yeah. Does that help? I hope that is useful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can send like the specific document. Okay, I'm not sure how do I access the chat, but I'm not sure if there is even a chat, but I guess like I can find a way to send the specific document if you want. Yeah, like if you didn't get the QR code just now.
It's okay, I got it.
Okay, yeah, hope it was helpful. Yes, does anyone have other questions?
Hi. So you mentioned that you're taking environmental studies in NUS, right?
Yep.
So how is your experience like there? And if I'm not eligible for it, are there any similar courses that I can take?
Okay. So I guess like for the eligibility criteria, like if you're interested in that, it's actually quite chill. Like I think it's just that you take H2 bio, or basically you are a science stream student. But if you are art stream student, you can appeal, and most of the time, like if you get a good A level score, they will still accept you. Yeah. So the most common like subject combination for A level that they will accept is like BCME or like BCM something. Yeah, so it's like as long as you have bio. But even if you don't, like it's okay. Like you can be like a PCME student, or you can be like a GELM or HELM student. Yeah, like an art student. And you can just appeal, and the acceptance rate is quite high. Yeah, it's not very difficult to get in, like as long as you hit like a certain rank point. So I think it's probably like 82.5 rank points, that sort of thing. Yeah. But I guess back to the question about like my experience. Okay, I guess this is specific to uni already, but like I think like yeah, there's like quite a lot of exposure to environmental related issues. So like for example, environmental law and environmental policy, that sort of thing. But I mean I'm only in year one and I just did semester one. So I wouldn't be like a super accurate representation of what the whole course is about because I've only gone through like 1/8 of like the whole course itself. Yeah. um but like I guess like if you are interested in that and you are kind of like unable to get into that particular course, I know NUS has life science for environmental biology, or like yeah, the life science, right? Then you go into it, then you specialize in environmental like biology. Yeah, so that's quite similar to environmental studies. Yeah. it's just like another route that you can take. So that's like a possible route that you can consider if you feel like it's like a better option. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I'll just stay on to answer any other questions. But I mean, if you don't have, you don't need to stay on, I guess. Yeah, but yeah, I'll just like stay and wait for more questions.
Hi, it's me again. I just wanna ask if like there's a reason why people prefer taking economics over job.
Honestly, like I also don't really know because I took geog, but I think like the reason could mainly be the fact that like econs is more like it's seen as the most science humanities. So like if you really don't like humanities, like econs is the most like sciencey sort of thing that yeah, people take. And also like I guess like it could be the fact that it's very common. Yeah, so like I mean you see a lot of people take it, then you also want to take it, that sort of thing. And like mostly from what I know, it's like people take econs because they don't really know what else to take. Like it's like just like the default, yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay.